the flower in the hair was an idea of Nike. So the flower is the national flower of the Philippines. It's called the Sampaguita. And kind of the whole idea behind it.
Under 60 seconds. That is reportedly all it took for Alexandra Eala's Sampaguita Nike collection to disappear online, turning a limited merchandise drop into a worldwide declaration of something considerably larger than fashion. Eala already carries the kind of emotional pull that brands spend decades trying to manufacture. When Filipino fans watched those pieces vanish and saw resale prices begin climbing almost immediately, this stopped being about shirts and shoes. It became proof that one player's story had reached escape velocity. And the sold-out screen was only the ending of a story that had begun with a single flower. The context that made it hit harder only days earlier, Eala had walked off the Miami Open court following a brutal 6-0, 6-2 loss to Karolina Muchova. The audience had already absorbed the sting of that result, which is precisely why what happened next landed with such force. The Sampaguita relationship between Eala and Nike had been building quietly and deliberately for months. It deepened at her 2025 Wimbledon center court debut, where Nike gifted her a custom Sampaguita hair tie, one small, culturally loaded detail placed on one of tennis's most iconic stages. It deepened again later that year with the In Full Bloom shirt, designed by Filipino artist Georgina Canis, which sold out almost instantly without a single international advertising campaign supporting it. Then came February 27, 2026, Eala's visit to Nike World headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. Posters on the walls. Sampaguita pieces displayed prominently throughout the building. Eala recreating her winning pose as though the company already understood exactly what was coming. It was less a brand visit and more a coronation rehearsal. When the latest collection finally dropped, the only real obstacle was how fast the world could click. What made this different? There was no controversy here. No dramatic narrative. No villain in the traditional sense. The pressure came from something simpler and more powerful: scarcity colliding with devotion. Nike did not release a generic athlete capsule and hope the market noticed. IT built a collection around the Sampaguita, the national flower of the Philippines, a symbol of resilience, home, and identity, and placed it on the shoulders of a player whose fan base does not consume her story casually. They protect it, they claim it, they wear it as their own. That is what made the commercial response so revealing. When a limited run meets an ordinary market, items trickle out gradually. When a limited run meets a community that genuinely sees itself in the design, that recognizes their flower, their culture, their pride stitched into the fabric, shelves do not empty. They collapse. Some observers even drew comparisons to established Nike names whose recent releases, according to commercial commentary, generated nothing close to this level of immediate demand. That is not a criticism of those athletes. Apparel cycles move fast, and everyone in the sport understands that. But the comparison still lands, because it exposes where the energy actually lives in women's tennis right now. In late March 2026, that energy was unmistakably with Eala. The first signal, the earliest indication, arrived long before the sellout, at Wimbledon in 2025, when Nike provided that custom Sampaguita hair tie for her center court debut. One detail, one flower, one cultural marker, placed quietly on one of tennis's most photographed stages. Eala explained why it mattered in the way only she could, not as a brand moment, but as something personal. Something that let her carry a piece of home onto the grandest court in the sport. That is where this story began. Not in a boardroom, not in a marketing brief, in a small, almost invisible detail that meant everything to the people it was designed for. And everything that followed, the shirt, the headquarters visit, the 60-second sellout, was simply the world catching up to what those people already knew.
This is so special for me. First of all, to just have something that reminds me of where I come from, of my country and my culture. Makes me special. Is where I come.
The Sampaguita is the flower of my country, a reminder of where I come from. That is not decorative branding. That is an athlete taking national memory onto the court and refusing to separate performance from identity. The flower in her hair was never a side note. It was the origin point. And everything that followed, the shirt, the headquarters visit, the 60-second sellout, was the world catching up to what her fans already understood. How a movement announces itself, the Wimbledon hair tie became the seed. By July 2025, the story had moved from symbolism to demonstrable demand. The Nike in full-bloom Sampaguita shirt, designed by Manila-based artist Georgina Canis, dropped in the Philippines and sold out quickly. That matters because it established a pattern rather than a fluke. First, the hair tie captures imagination. Then, the shirt proves that people are willing to purchase the story rather than simply admire it from a distance. That is how movements reveal themselves, not through a single viral moment, but through repeat behavior. The people who connected with Eala's cultural message the first time came back with their wallets the second time. July 2025 gave Nike evidence. February 27, 2026 gave Nike intent. The headquarters visit when Eala arrived at Nike World Headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. The treatment was impossible to misread. Career posters lining the walls. A dedicated Sampaguita shirt display. Custom shoes. And then the image that tied everything together. Eala recreating her signature winning celebration in front of imagery the company had built specifically around her eyes. Nobody in that building needed a press release to understand the message. Nike was not handling her as an athlete tucked away in a regional lane. It was staging her story with premium attention, surrounding her with visual language that felt less like background decoration and more like brand inheritance. The headquarters visit was not a reward for the movement. It was Nike stepping directly into it. Under 60 seconds, then, the collection dropped. And the numbers did the talking. According to fan tracking, tennis content creators, and resale reports, shirts, shoes, and accessories from the new Sampaguita theme dropped sold out in under 60 seconds. Traffic spiked. Listings went dark. Pieces appeared on secondary markets at roughly triple retail almost immediately. Monday, the link goes live. Within moments, inventory gone. Minutes later, resellers already circling. That is not passive interest. That is flash flood demand. Put yourself in the position of anyone still framing this as hype. You are watching a limited collection tied to a 20-year-old Filipina player vanish at a pace normally associated with global fashion collaborations and megastar sneaker launches. Not after a Grand Slam title. Not after a year-end #1 finish. Right now, while her on-court career is still unfolding in real time, the implication is enormous. Her story is already monetizing at a level that forces the rest of the sport to pay attention. What the sellout actually meant once the pieces sold through, the emotional response arrived exactly where this story always wanted to go, in the hands of the people. Fans across Asia and the Filipino diaspora flooded social media with pride posts, celebration edits, and screenshots of sold-out pages. Resellers moved instantly, which told one truth. The fan reaction told a much larger one. This was not simply commerce. This was recognition. A nation's flower had crossed from court symbolism into something the world wanted to own, display, and actively pursue. The audience that believed Eala represented something larger than ranking points did not need permission from a marketing department to feel that. They were there when the hair tie debuted at Wimbledon. They were there when the shirt moved in July. And when the latest drop vanished in under a minute, the entire tennis world had to confront what her supporters had understood for months. Alexandra Eala is not being carried by a trend. She is driving one. What Nike said this is the company that has been with Eala since her teenage years. The company that turned a custom Wimbledon detail into a broader visual language. The company that welcomed her into its world headquarters, built dedicated Sampaguita displays around her image, and treated her cultural story as premium brand material rather than niche storytelling. When Nike spoke, it spoke with unusual clarity. The Sampaguita is a flower that holds its own. And so does Alex, a lifetime in the making, a nation behind her. Brands do not casually distribute identity-rich messaging at this level. They protect it. They test it. They reserve it for athletes whose story can carry genuine weight across multiple markets simultaneously. When Nike frames Eala not only as a competitor, but as someone with an entire nation behind her, the company is validating the exact emotional truth her fans have been expressing for months. The commercial machine is no longer cautiously observing. it has chosen a side. The deeper shift, the immediate sellout, is the headline. What it signals is the more significant story. For years, premium brand heat in women's tennis has been concentrated around the most established names and the most familiar markets. This Sampaguita drop landed somewhere different entirely. It demonstrated that an athlete from an emerging tennis nation, carrying an authentic cultural symbol with genuine depth behind it, can generate premium demand powerful enough to distort supply in real time. That is not a side story to the season. It is a map of where the sport is heading. The clay swing is approaching, Charleston, Stuttgart, and Madrid waiting to become the next stages where cameras, fans, and brands measure not only how Eala performs but how loudly her presence registers. After that, Rome and Roland Garros, events where a player carrying this level of cultural momentum turns every walk onto court into a brand event before the first ball is struck. The defensible prediction is this: if Eala remains anywhere near this level of relevance on court, Nike will not be able to keep the Sampaguita confined to a single novelty moment. Expanded releases, deeper customization, broader regional rollouts become the logical next movement, because the current appetite has already exposed the existing ceiling as far too low. The complete picture: none of this erases the tennis reality. On March 23rd in Miami, Machova dismantled her 6-0, 6-2. Before that, Indian Wells had delivered another harsh scoreline against Linda Noskova. Those results are real, and they belong honestly in the story. They are part of the climb. What the aftermath revealed was something important. Eala did not disappear into embarrassment. Her community did not treat one difficult night as a reason to step back. Within days, the conversation around her name had shifted from a painful scoreboard to a sold-out cultural statement. That is not denial. That is perspective. The losses remain part of the narrative, but they no longer have the power to define the entire frame. A flower on a Wimbledon hair tie, a shirt in July, a headquarters display in Oregon, a Miami loss on March 23rd. Then the drop, the scramble, the empty inventory, the resale surge, and those screenshots spreading across fan accounts everywhere. 2 words, repeated thousands of times. Sold out. That is the full picture. Alexandra Eala has proven that her influence now extends well beyond draw sheets and scoreboards. She carries a symbol people recognize instantly. And when Nike turned that symbol into a collection, the response was overwhelming enough to feel historic. The question now is not whether this is real. The sellout answered that. The question is how much bigger it gets when the titles start arriving.